My name is Melody. I am 30 years old and I live in a quiet apartment in the city. I walked into the Italian restaurant, clutching a gift bag in my hand. I was exactly on time, but the dinner was already over. The table was a mess of empty wine glasses and crumpled napkins. My parents were leaning back in their chairs, looking full and happy. My sister, Tiffany, was checking her makeup in her phone reflection. They didn't stand up to greet me. They didn't ask where I had been. I looked at the empty seat they had saved for me. There was no place setting. There was no menu. There was only one thing waiting for me on the white tablecloth. The check. It was placed directly in front of my chair. My mother looked up at me. Her eyes were bright, but not with love. She smiled that soft, gentle smile she always used before she asked for something impossible. "You don't mind covering the bill, right, Melody?" she asked. Her voice was casual, like she was asking for the salt. Tiffany laughed. It wasn't a nervous laugh. It was an expectant one. I stood there, freezing in the middle of the busy dining room. I finally saw the truth clearly. I wasn't invited to celebrate their marriage. I was just invited to pay for it. And in that quiet moment, looking at their satisfied faces, something inside me finally broke. But before I tell you how everything flipped, like and subscribe, drop a comment. Where are you watching from? My name is Melody. I am 30 years old. I have always been the easy one. In every family, I think roles are assigned before you even know how to speak. Some children are the stars, some are the troublemakers, and some, like me, are the background noise. I was the low-maintenance child. That was the label my mother gave me with a pat on the head. She would tell her friends, "Melody is such a breeze. I never have to worry about her. She just takes care of herself." It sounded like a compliment when I was 7. It felt like an achievement. I learned early on that my parents' attention was a limited resource, like water in a drought, and my sister Tiffany drank it all. Tiffany was 2 years older than me. She was loud, demanding, and emotional. If she had a bad day at school, the whole house had to shut down to comfort her. If she wanted a specific toy, my parents would drive to 3 different stores to find it just to stop her crying. I learned to be the opposite. If I was hungry, I made a sandwich. If I scraped my knee, I put on a Band-Aid. If I was sad, I went to my room and stared at the ceiling until the feeling went away. I thought I was being good. I thought I was helping. I didn't realize I was training them to ignore me. The pattern solidified when we were teenagers. I remember my 16th birthday clearly. I had asked for a small dinner, just us, maybe at a pizza place. But 3 days before my birthday, Tiffany had a breakup. Her high school boyfriend dumped her. It was dramatic. She was screaming, throwing things, locking herself in the bathroom. My birthday came and went. No one mentioned it. My mother was too busy holding ice packs to Tiffany's swollen eyes. My father was too busy trying to coax Tiffany out of her room with promises of a shopping spree. I sat on the porch alone, eating a cupcake I bought for myself at the gas station. I didn't say anything. I didn't want to add to their stress. I swallowed my disappointment like a bitter pill and told myself, "It's okay, they have a lot on their plate." That became my mantra. They have a lot on their plate. When I graduated college, the dynamic shifted from emotional space to financial space. I worked hard. I've always been good with numbers, good with organization. I landed a job in data analysis right out of school. It wasn't flashy, but it paid well. I was smart with my money. I saved, I invested. By the time I was 25, I was comfortable. Tiffany, on the other hand, was finding herself. She tried acting. She tried fashion design. She tried being an influencer. She lived at home, rent-free, while my parents paid for her car, her phone, and her credit card bills. The first time I gave them money, it was small. My mom called me, sounding frantic. The electric bill was due, and Dad's paycheck hadn't cleared yet. Could I spot them $200? "Of course," I said. "I can help." I felt proud. I finally had something to offer. I finally had a way to be valuable to them. I transferred the money immediately. They thanked me profusely. "You're such a lifesaver, Melody," Mom said. "Thank goodness you're so responsible." That praise was addictive. It was the only time they looked at me with genuine appreciation. But then it happened again the next month. And the month after. The amounts got bigger. First electricity, then a car repair, then Tiffany needs a deposit for an apartment so she can finally move out. I paid it all. I wanted them to be happy. I wanted Tiffany to succeed. I started lying about my own life to keep the peace. I realized that if they knew how much I actually made, they would ask for more. So I created a character for myself. To my family, I wasn't a senior data analyst for a major tech firm. I was a clerk. I told them I did data entry. I told them my rent was high and things were tight. I drove a 5-year-old sedan even though I could afford a luxury car. I wore simple clothes. I never talked about my bonuses. I did this because I was afraid. I was afraid that if they knew the truth, they would stop seeing me as a daughter completely and just see me as a bank account. I wanted to be loved for me, not for what I could buy them. But deep down, I think I knew the truth. I think I knew that the easy child had just become the convenient adult. I was the safety net. I was the backup plan. And as long as I kept my mouth shut and opened my wallet, they let me sit at the table. Over the last 5 years, family dinners became a ritual. But they weren't the kind of warm, chaotic family dinners you see in movies. They were transactions. The pattern was always the same. It was so predictable I could have written a script for it. It would start with a text message, not a phone call, just a text in the group chat, usually from my mother. Family dinner this Friday, we need to catch up. 7 p.m. Then she would drop the location. It was never a casual place. It was never a potluck at their house. It was always a steakhouse, a high-end seafood place, or a trendy French bistro. Places with white tablecloths and valet parking. Places where an appetizer cost $20. They never asked me if I was free. They never asked me if I could afford it. They just assumed I would be there. I would feel a knot of anxiety in my stomach as soon as the text arrived. I tried to say no a few times in the beginning. I would say, "I'm actually really tired this week," or "I have a lot of work." The response was always immediate guilt. "But we never see you, Melody, don't be like that. Tiffany is coming, she really wants to see her sister. It's just dinner, you have to eat, don't you?" So I would go. I would arrive, usually right on time. They would already be seated. They often started ordering drinks before I got there. Expensive cocktails, bottles of wine for the table. The ordering process was a torture I learned to endure quietly. My father would look at the menu and say, "I think I'll have the ribeye, and maybe the lobster tail on the side." My mother would order appetizers for everyone to share, calamari, shrimp cocktails, artisan cheese boards. "Oh, we have to try this," she would say, waving the waiter over. Tiffany was the worst. She would order the most expensive item on the menu, take 3 bites, and then push it away saying she was too full. She would order rounds of shots or specialty martinis. I sat there drinking tap water. I would order the cheapest salad or a simple pasta dish. I ate slowly, watching the numbers add up in my head. That's $50 for wine. That's $80 for steaks. That's $30 for appetizers. The conversation was never about me. They talked about Tiffany's latest drama. They talked about neighbors I didn't know. They talked about Dad's golf game. If I tried to speak, to tell them about my week or a book I read, they would nod politely for 3 seconds and then interrupt me. "That's nice, honey," Mom would say. "Oh look, the calamari is here." And then the end of the night would come, the moment I dreaded most. The waiter would clear the plates. He would ask about dessert. They would order coffees and cakes. Finally, the little black leather folder would arrive. The waiter would place it in the center of the table. The silence that followed was heavy. It was a practiced silence. My father would pat his pockets. "Oh, shoot," he would mutter. "I think I left my wallet in the other jacket." Or my mother would look at me with big, innocent eyes. "Melody, do you have this? We'll get the next one. We'll get the next one." That was the lie that held our family together. There was never a next one. Or rather, there was, but they didn't get that one either. Sometimes they didn't even make an excuse. Sometimes Tiffany would just slide the folder toward me without breaking eye contact with her phone. And I would pay. I would pull out my credit card. I would smile a tight, painful smile. I would say, "It's fine, I've got it." Why did I do it? I've asked myself that question 1,000 times in the dark at 3 a.m. I did it because I wanted to be part of the family. I felt that if I refused, if I made a scene, I would be exiled. I thought that paying the bill was the price of admission. It was the rent I paid to occupy space in their lives. I told myself I was being generous. I told myself I was lucky to be able to afford it. I'm the strong one, I thought. I'm the provider. But it wasn't generosity. It was extortion. They weren't inviting me because they missed me. They were inviting me because they wanted a luxury meal and didn't want to spend their own money. I was an ATM with a pulse. And the worst part, they didn't even say thank you anymore. It was expected. It was my duty. I remember one specific dinner about 6 months ago. It was for my dad's birthday. I paid nearly $600. As we walked out to the parking lot, my dad put his arm around Tiffany. "Great dinner, sweetie," he said to her. "Thanks for coming." He didn't look at me. He didn't thank me for the food. He thanked Tiffany for her presence. I drove home that night crying so hard I had to pull over on the highway. I sat there in the dark, gripping the steering wheel, screaming silently. That was the first crack in the foundation. That was when I started to realize that no matter how much I paid, I would never buy their respect. The night of their 35th wedding anniversary was supposed to be different. I told myself it had to be different. This was a milestone, 35 years. I had spent weeks thinking about the gift. I wanted to give them something meaningful, not just money. I found an old box of photos in their attic months ago and had secretly scanned them. I hired a digital artist to restore the damaged ones. I compiled them into a beautiful, leather-bound photo book. It told the story of their life together. It was sentimental. It was thoughtful. I was excited to give it to them. I thought, maybe this time, we can just talk. Maybe this time, the focus will be on the memories. The dinner was at La Vetta, the most expensive Italian restaurant in the city. Reservations were impossible to get, but Tiffany had insisted on it, so of course they went. I was coming from work. I had a meeting that ran late, but I texted them. "Running 15 minutes late, so sorry, please order appetizers without me." I rushed home, changed into a nice dress, grabbed the heavy gift bag, and drove across town. I was anxious. I checked my watch every red light. I hated being late. I knew they would make comments about it. When I finally arrived, it was 7:45 p.m. The reservation was for 7 o'clock. I walked into the restaurant. The smell of truffle oil and roasted garlic hit me. It was dimly lit, romantic, full of soft chatter and clinking silverware. I scanned the room and found them at a round table near the back window. I walked up, a smile plastered on my face, ready to apologize. "Happy anniversary," I said, breathless. I stopped. The table was cleared. There were no plates of food in front of them. There were just empty dessert bowls with spoons scraped clean. Empty espresso cups. A half-empty bottle of wine. They had already eaten, all of it. They didn't just order appetizers. They had ordered dinner, eaten it, ordered dessert, eaten that, and finished coffee. In 45 minutes. They must have raced through the meal, or maybe they started earlier than they told me. My dad looked up, his face flushed with wine. "Oh, look who decided to show up," he said. He didn't sound angry, he sounded bored. "I'm so sorry," I said, gripping the gift bag tighter. "Traffic was terrible and the meeting." "It's fine, Melody," my mother said. She wiped the corner of her mouth with a napkin. "We were starving, so we went ahead." They didn't ask if I was hungry. They didn't offer me a menu. I looked at the empty chair. There was no silverware, no water glass. But there was the black leather folder. The check. It was sitting squarely on the placemat where my plate should have been. It was the only thing welcoming me to the table. My stomach dropped. The humiliation hit me like a physical slap. They hadn't waited 5 minutes for me. They hadn't saved me a breadstick. "You don't mind covering the bill, right?" Mom asked. The words from the hook of my story echoed in my head. Her voice was so light, so airy. Tiffany looked at me and smirked. She was checking her reflection in her phone screen, fixing her lipstick. "Relax, Mel," she said. "You're always good at this. Besides, Dad forgot his card." "Again," I whispered. "Don't be petty," Tiffany snapped, finally looking at me. "It's their anniversary, don't ruin it." I looked at the three of them. My father, the man who taught me to ride a bike, who was currently picking his teeth with a toothpick, avoiding my gaze. My mother, who I desperately wanted to please, smiling expectantly at my purse. My sister, who contributed nothing but criticism, looking bored. I looked at the gift bag in my hand. The photo album, the hours of work. The love I had poured into it. I looked at the check. I reached out and opened the folder. My hand was shaking slightly. I looked at the total. $485.50. They had eaten nearly $500 worth of food without me, and they expected me to pay for the privilege of sitting at a dirty table. They didn't see me, they didn't see Melody. They saw a wallet, they saw a resource. I felt something click in my chest. It wasn't a loud crack. It was a quiet, final sound, like a lock turning. I looked at the waiter who was hovering nearby, looking awkward. He knew. He had watched them eat. He knew I had just walked in. He looked pitying. I didn't want his pity. "Sure," I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Calm. Robotic, I'll take care of it. I wasn't doing it to be nice. Not this time. I was doing it to buy the evidence. I handed the waiter my card. I didn't sit down. I stood there while he processed the payment. "Aren't you going to sit?" Mom asked. "We can order you I don't know, a salad." "No," I said, "I'm not hungry." I wasn't hungry, I was nauseous. The waiter returned with the receipt. I signed it. I didn't add a tip on the card. I pulled a 20 out of my purse and handed it directly to the waiter so he would get it, not them. I picked up my copy of the receipt. I folded it carefully and put it in my pocket. "Happy anniversary," I said again. I placed the gift bag on the table. "Here." "Oh, lovely," Mom said, reaching for it. She didn't say thank you for the dinner. I turned around and walked out. I didn't look back. I heard them tearing into the gift bag as I walked away. The drive home was silent. I didn't cry this time. I didn't scream. Usually, after these dinners, I would spend hours rationalizing it. I would tell myself, it's okay, they're family. Money is just money. But tonight, the rationalization didn't come. Instead, a cold, hard logic took over. It was the data analyst in me. I needed to see the numbers. I needed to stop acting on emotion and start looking at the facts. I walked into my apartment. My boyfriend Caleb was on the couch reading. He looked up and saw my face. "You're back early," he said. "How was it?" "It's done," I said. He stood up concerned. "What happened? Did they fight?" "No," I said. "They ate without me. They stuck me with the bill and I paid it." Caleb sighed. He hated how they treated me. He had been telling me for years to stop, but he never pushed too hard. He knew I had to come to the conclusion myself. "I'm sorry, Mel," he said softly. "I need to work," I said. I went to my home office. I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. I didn't open my work email. I opened my personal finance software. I created a new spreadsheet. I named it the family tax. I started going back through my bank statements. I went back 1 month, then 6 months, then a year, then 5 years. I categorized everything. Category dinners, category Tiffany's bills, category emergency loans, category gifts, category group vacations where I paid for the Airbnb. I worked for 3 hours. The list grew longer and longer. The rows filled up. There was the $2,000 for Tiffany's car repair, the $800 for Mom's dental work, the $300 grocery runs, the countless $400 dinners, the time Dad borrowed, $1,500 for a business idea that never happened. It wasn't just occasional help. It was a systematic siphoning of my livelihood. I looked at individual line items. I remembered the emotions attached to them. June 12th, $120. Mom's birthday lunch. I remembered she criticized my hair the whole time. August 4th, $350. Tiffany's concert tickets. She didn't even invite me. She just asked me to buy them for her and her friend. I typed in the final number from tonight, $485.50. Then I hit the sum button for the 5-year total. The number appeared in bold black text at the bottom of the screen. $62,450. I stared at the screen. $62,000. That was a down payment on a house. That was a master's degree. That was a wedding. That was a year of travel. I had given them $62,000, and they couldn't even wait 10 minutes for me to eat dinner. I felt Caleb's hand on my shoulder. He had walked in quietly and was looking at the screen. He whistled low. "Melody." "I know," I whispered. "I bought them a luxury car, basically. Piece by piece." "And what did you get in return?" he asked. It wasn't a mean question. It was a genuine one. I thought about it. What did I get? Did I get love? No. Did I get respect? No. Did I get security? No. I got ignored. I got used. I got the privilege of being the background character in their lives while financing the show. Caleb pulled up a chair and sat next to me. He took my hand. His hands were warm. "Do you want this to keep going?" he asked. "Look at that number. In another 5 years, that will be over $100,000. Is that what you want your life to be?" I looked at the number. Then I looked at the receipt from tonight, which I had placed on the desk. "No," I said. I shook my head, and for the first time the guilt was gone. The fear of them leaving me was gone, because I realized they weren't really with me anyway. You can't lose something you never had. "This ends now," I said. My voice was steady. "Okay," Caleb said. "How do you want to do it? Do you want to call them, shout at them?" "No," I said. "That gives them power. That gives them a chance to play the victim. They'll cry. They'll say I'm ungrateful. Tiffany will scream." I closed the laptop. "I'm not going to say anything," I said. "I'm just going to stop." Cold turkey," I said. "I'm going to wait for the next invitation, and I'm going to accept it. But the bank is closed." I felt a strange sensation in my chest. It wasn't anxiety, it was peace. It was the feeling of dropping a heavy backpack after hiking for miles. I turned to Caleb. Let's order a pizza. I'm starving. That night, we ate cheap pepperoni pizza on the living room floor. It cost $20, and it tasted better than any meal I had ever paid for at La Veta. The morning after the anniversary disaster, I woke up with a strange feeling in my chest. Usually, the morning after a family dinner, I woke up with a guilt hangover. I would lay in bed replaying every conversation, wondering if I had said the wrong thing, wondering if Tiffany was mad at me, wondering if Dad liked his gift. But this morning, there was no guilt. There was only silence. I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. The sunlight was filtering through the blinds. I could hear Caleb making coffee in the kitchen. The smell of roasted beans drifted down the hall. It was a normal Saturday. But for me, it felt like the first day of a new life. I reached for my phone on the nightstand. This was a reflex. Every morning for the last 10 years, my first act was to check the family group chat. Usually there were messages from Mom complaining about a neighbor, or Tiffany sending a link to a pair of shoes she wanted. I unlocked the screen. The group chat was there. Mom, what a night, so tired today. Tiffany, my head hurts. Need coffee ASAP. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. The old Melody would have typed, hope you guys get some rest, love you, or I would have Venmoed Tiffany $5 for her coffee. I looked at the cursor blinking. Blink, blink, blink. I didn't type anything. I closed the app. I put the phone face down on the table. I walked into the kitchen. Caleb looked up from his toast. He looked cautious. Morning, he said. Checking the damage report. No, I said. I didn't reply. Caleb raised his eyebrows. You didn't? No, I poured myself a cup of coffee. My hand was steady. I'm not going to announce it, Caleb. If I tell them I'm cutting you off, it becomes a drama. It becomes a fight. They'll cry, they'll say I'm being mean. I'm just stopping like a machine that ran out of fuel. The first few days were the hardest. It wasn't hard because I missed them. It was hard because I was addicted to the anxiety. I kept checking my phone, waiting for them to notice I was gone. Monday came. Mom, Melody, can you look at this insurance document for Dad? I don't understand the deductible. I saw the message while I was at work. My stomach tightened. This was my job. I was the translator of difficult things. I usually would have called her immediately on my lunch break and spent 45 minutes explaining it. I forced myself to put the phone away. I worked on my spreadsheets. I went to a meeting. At 5 p.m. I replied, I'm swamped at work this week. I think the document explains it on page 3. It was polite, it was direct, but it was a no. Mom, oh, okay. I guess I'll try to figure it out. The passive aggression was thick. She wanted me to feel bad. She wanted me to say, no, wait, I'll do it. I didn't. By the second week, the silence from my end was becoming noticeable. They started poking the bear. Tiffany sent me a private message on Thursday. Tiffany, hey sis, I'm a little short on rent this month. My hours got cut. Can I borrow $300? I'll pay you back next week. I stared at the message. I'll pay you back, the greatest lie in the history of our family. She had never paid me back a single cent, not for the car repair, not for the concert tickets. Not for the bail money that one time in college. I typed, I can't right now, Tiff, my budget is tight. Tiffany, seriously, you have a huge salary, don't be a jerk. Mom said you guys went to the movies last weekend. They were watching me. They were tracking my spending. Me, I can't help this month. She sent a row of angry face emojis, then silence. I sat on my couch that night, shaking. Is this mean? I asked Caleb. She might get evicted. Caleb sat down next to me. She lives with your parents, Mel. She's not going to get evicted. She just wants spending money for the weekend. He was right. I knew he was right. But breaking the habit of being their savior felt like breaking a bone. It hurt. It felt wrong. I felt like a bad daughter. But I kept looking at my family tax spreadsheet. $62,450. I had to stay strong. Then the invitation came. It was exactly 2 weeks after the anniversary. My phone buzzed. Mom, family dinner, Friday night, we need to catch up, we missed you. Dad, let's go to the Blue Pearl. I'm craving oysters. Tiffany, yes, I need a celebration drink, this week sucked. The Blue Pearl, I knew it well, it was on the waterfront, white linens, valet parking. An appetizer tower there cost $80. My heart started hammering against my ribs. This was the test. They were testing the waters. They were seeing if the ATM was back in service. I looked at Caleb. They want to go to the Blue Pearl. Of course they do, Caleb said. Are you going? I took a deep breath. If I didn't go, nothing would change. They would just think I was busy. They needed to see it. They needed to understand that the dynamic had shifted permanently. I'm going, I said. But I need a plan. I went into my closet. Usually for family dinners I dressed down. I wore beige cardigans, flat shoes, no makeup. I tried to look small. I tried to look like I didn't have money. I tried to blend into the wallpaper so they wouldn't attack me. Not this time. I pulled out a black blazer I hadn't worn in years. I pulled out my dark tailored jeans. I found my red lipstick. I replied to the text. Me. I'll be there, 7 p.m. No emojis, no exclamation points. For the next 2 days, I rehearsed the moment in my head. I visualized the check arriving. I visualized my father's face. I practiced my lines in the shower. I won't be paying. Separate checks, please. No, I had to be ready. Because I knew deep down that when I did this, I would be declaring war. Friday night. The air was cool and salty. I pulled my car into the lot of the Blue Pearl. The valet parker stepped up. Valet, ma'am, it's $20. Usually I would pay for my car, and then later my dad would hand me his keys and say, "Get mine too, sweetie." Tonight, I parked in the self-parking lot down the street and walked 2 blocks. I wasn't paying $20 for parking. I walked toward the restaurant. The windows were glowing with warm, golden light. I could see the silhouettes of people inside, laughing, toasting, eating. It looked so inviting. It looked like a happy family scene. I knew better. I walked in. The hostess led me to the table. It was the best table in the house, right by the window overlooking the harbor. My family was already there, and they had already started. That was their power move. They never waited for me. Starting without me was their way of saying, "You are an accessory to this event, not a main character." A massive seafood tower stood in the center of the table. It was 3 tiers high. Oysters, clams, chilled shrimp, crab claws. It was glistening on a bed of crushed ice. A bottle of expensive champagne, Veuve Clicquot, was already popped, sitting in a silver bucket. "There she is," Dad shouted. His face was already flushed. He had a crab leg in one hand. "We thought you got lost." "Traffic," I said simply. I didn't apologize. I sat down. The chair was cold. "We ordered some appetizers," Mom said, waving her hand at the tower. "Dig in. The shrimp are to die for." "And we ordered another bottle," Tiffany said. She was taking a selfie with her oyster. She didn't even look at me. "I need it. My boss was such a nightmare today." The waiter appeared at my elbow. "Good evening, miss. Can I get you a glass of champagne?" I looked at the bottle. I knew that bottle was $120. "No, thank you," I said clearly. "I'll stick to iced tea," my mother frowned. "Oh, come on, Melody. It's a celebration. Dad got a good report from his doctor." "That's great news," I said, "but I'm driving, just iced tea." "And for dinner?" the waiter asked. I looked at the menu. I didn't look at the prices, but I knew them. The lobster thermidor was $65. The sea bass was $50. "I'm not very hungry tonight," I said. "I'll have the house garden salad with grilled chicken." The table went quiet for a second. "A salad?" Tiffany laughed. "Mel, this is the Blue Pearl. You don't order a salad. Live a little." "I'm fine with the salad," I said. I handed the menu back to the waiter. "Well," Dad said, clearing his throat, "I'm going for the surf and turf. Largest lobster you have, son." "I'll have the scallops," Mom said, "and a side of truffle fries." "Lobster risotto for me," Tiffany said. "And another round of oysters." I watched them order. It was like watching a car crash in slow motion. They were ordering with such abandon. They were ordering like royalty. But they were ordering with my wallet. They didn't ask the price of the specials. They didn't care. Why should they? In their minds, the bill would disappear. I was the magician who made the debt vanish. The dinner lasted 2 hours. It was grueling. They talked over me. They talked about people I didn't know. They complained about money, ironically. "Gas prices are so high," Dad complained, while eating a $60 steak. "I can't believe rent is going up," Tiffany whined, while drinking a $20 glass of wine. I ate my salad slowly. I drank my iced tea. I said very little. I was observing them. I was seeing them clearly for the first time. They weren't evil. They were just spoiled. And I was the one who had spoiled them. Finally, the plates were cleared. The table was wiped down. "Any desserts?" the waiter asked. "Oh, the chocolate lava cake," Mom said. "Cheesecake," Dad said. "Espresso martini," Tiffany said. I ordered nothing. 20 minutes later, the desserts were gone. The coffee was finished. The moment arrived. The waiter walked over with the black leather folder. He placed it in the center of the table. The air in the room seemed to change. The laughter died down. My father did his usual routine. He patted his pockets. He looked at the ceiling. "Boy, I'm stuffed." My mother looked at me. She smiled that sweet, expectant smile. "Melody, thank you for coming out. It's so nice to have the family together." She nudged the check toward me, just an inch, but the message was clear: "It's your turn." Tiffany was checking her makeup in her compact mirror. She wasn't even worried. I stared at the black folder. I could feel my heart beating in my throat. This was the cliff. I had to jump. I reached out and took the folder. "Oh, thanks, honey," Mom said, relaxing. She started gathering her purse. "Next time I opened the folder. I looked at the bill. Total, $845.50. I didn't pull out my credit card. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a $20 bill. I also pulled out a $5 bill. I placed the cash on top of the receipt. Then I pushed the folder back toward the center of the table, toward Dad. "Here is $25, I said. My voice was calm, but it felt loud in the quiet restaurant. "That covers my salad, my iced tea, and a generous tip." I folded my hands on the table. My mother stopped moving. Her hand froze on her purse strap. Tiffany snapped her compact shut. Dad looked at the check, then at me. "What?" Dad said. He laughed nervously. "What is this?" "It's my payment," I said, "for what I ate." "Melody, stop joking," Mom said. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "People are watching." "I'm not joking," I said. "I'm not paying for the lobster. I'm not paying for the champagne. I didn't order it. I didn't eat it." "But," Mom stammered, "but we didn't plan for this." "I know," I said. "You planned for me." I stood up. I saw the waiter watching from the service station. I waved him over. "Excuse me," I said. The waiter hurried over. "Yes, ma'am. I just want to be clear," I said, loud enough for the table to hear. "I have paid for my meal in cash. I am not responsible for the rest of this bill. Please do not charge any card you might have on file for me." "Of course not, ma'am," the waiter said. He looked at my parents. "How will you be settling the balance?" I looked at my family. The look on their faces wasn't sadness. It was shock. It was the look of a king who had just been told his crown was made of paper. The silence at table 14 was absolute. My father looked at the waiter, then at the check, then at me. His face turned a deep, alarming shade of red. "Melody," he hissed. "Sit down now." "No," I said. I stood behind my chair, using it as a shield. "You can't do this," Tiffany said. Her voice was rising, becoming shrill. "You can't just invite us out and then stick us with the bill." "I didn't invite you," I said calmly. "Mom sent the text. Dad chose the restaurant. You ordered the champagne. I just attended." "It's $800, Dad shouted. A couple at the next table turned to look. My mother shrank into her seat, pulling her scarf up around her neck. She hated a scene more than anything. "Lower your voice, Frank," she whispered. "I don't have $800, Dad said, ignoring her. He pointed a shaking finger at me. "You know things are tight right now. You know I'm waiting on that commission check." "I know," I said. "So why did you order the surf and turf? Why did you order the second bottle of wine?" "Because," he sputtered. "Because we were celebrating. We thought you were handling it. That's what you do." "That's what I did," I corrected. "Past tense." The waiter was shifting uncomfortably. "Sir, do you need a moment?" "We need a manager," Tiffany yelled. "My sister is trying to scam us." "Tiffany, stop," I said. The manager arrived quickly. He was a tall man with a stern face. He had seen this before, but usually with teenagers, not a grown family. "Is there a problem?" he asked. "Yes," Dad said. "There is a misunderstanding about the bill." "There is no misunderstanding," I said to the manager. "I paid for my portion. My family seems to be having trouble covering theirs." My mother looked at me with tears in her eyes, real tears this time. "Melody, please, don't do this. Just pay it this one last time. We'll pay you back." "I swear," I looked at her. I looked at the woman who had raised me. I loved her. I really did. But I realized in that moment that enabling her wasn't love. It was poison. If I paid this bill, nothing would ever change. We would be back here next month and the month after that. "No, Mom," I said softly. "I can't." Dad let out a long, defeated sigh. He opened his wallet. It was worn leather, stuffed with receipts. He pulled out a credit card. It was a blue one. He handed it to the manager. "Try this." The manager took it and walked away. The minutes that followed were excruciating. Tiffany was texting furiously. Mom was staring out the window, refusing to look at me. Dad was wiping sweat from his forehead with a napkin. I didn't leave. I stayed. I needed to see this through. The manager returned. He held the card out to Dad with 2 fingers. I'm sorry, sir, the card was declined. Dad closed his eyes. He looked small, he looked old. Declined, he whispered. That's impossible. Try the Visa, Mom said, digging into her purse. The one we use for emergencies. This isn't an emergency, Helen, Dad snapped. This is dinner. Just give it to him. She handed the manager the second card. He walked away again. Tiffany looked at me. Her eyes were full of pure hatred. I hope you're happy. You're humiliating, Dad. You're a monster. I'm not the one who ordered the oysters, Tiffany, I said. You're 32 years old. Maybe you should have a credit card that works. She gasped. The manager returned. That one was approved, he said. Relief washed over the table, but it was cold relief. It was the relief of surviving a car crash, not avoiding one. Dad signed the receipt. His hand was shaking. He didn't leave a tip. We're leaving, Dad said. He stood up abruptly. He didn't look at me. Don't follow us. I won't, I said. They shuffled out of the restaurant. My mother looked frail. Tiffany looked furious. Dad looked broken. I watched them go. I watched them argue with the valet parker about the $20 fee. I saw Dad kicking the tire of his car. I stood there alone in the middle of the restaurant. I felt a wave of nausea, but then it passed. And in its place came a feeling I hadn't expected. Strength. I had done it. The worst thing imaginable, saying no to my family, had happened. The sky hadn't fallen. The world hadn't ended. They had paid their own bill. I picked up my purse. I walked over to the manager. I'm sorry about the scene, I said. It happens, he said, giving me a knowing look. Family is complicated. Yes, I said, but it just got a lot simpler. I walked out into the night air. I walked the 2 blocks to my car. I got in, locked the doors, and screamed, just once, a loud, primal scream of release. Then I started the engine and drove home. I expected the silence to break, and it did. It broke with a sledgehammer. By the time I got home, I had 12 missed calls, 7 from Mom, 3 from Dad, 2 from Tiffany. I walked into my apartment. Caleb was waiting for me on the couch. He had a glass of wine ready. You're alive, he said. I did it, I said, dropping my keys on the table. They paid. Dad had to use the emergency card. Wow, Caleb said. How was it? Awful, I admitted. And amazing. I showed him my phone. The texts were rolling in. Tiffany, you are dead to me. Do you know how embarrassed I was? The manager looked at us like we were trash. Mom, I don't know who you are anymore. The melody I raised was kind. She was generous. You've become cold. Money has changed you. I laughed at that one. Money hadn't changed me. Their need for my money had changed me. I didn't reply to any of them. I set a boundary in my own mind. I will not engage with abuse. The next few weeks were a revelation. Without my financial buffer, the reality of their life came crashing down on them. I heard from my Aunt Sarah that Dad tried to return the luxury grill he had bought last month, but he couldn't find the receipt. I saw on Facebook that Tiffany was selling her designer handbags. Closet clean out, DM for prices, her caption said. It was desperate. They tried to guilt me. Mom called me a week later. Her voice was weak, trembling. Melody, your father is so stressed. His blood pressure is through the roof. He's worried about the credit card bill. If you could just help us with half, just this once. It was a trap, I knew it. If I paid half, I was admitting I was wrong. I was admitting that I was responsible. I can't, Mom, I said. I have my own bills. Dad needs to budget better. Maybe he should sell the boat he never uses. How can you be so heartless? She cried. It's not heartless, I said. It's math. I hung up. The fallout continued. Tiffany stopped posting photos of brunch. She stopped posting photos of shopping sprees. Her social media went quiet. My parents stopped hosting their lavish monthly parties for the neighbors. It was strange to watch. It was like watching a kingdom crumble because the treasury had been locked. But amidst their chaos, my life started to bloom. I looked at my bank account at the end of the month. Usually, after the family tax, I had about $200 left for savings. This month, I had $2,400. $2,400. I stared at the number. Caleb, I called out. Look at this. He looked, he smiled. That's Italy money. That's house money, I said. We booked a weekend trip to a cabin in the mountains, just us. We hiked. We cooked cheap pasta. We drank wine by the fire. I didn't check my phone for 3 days. I realized that for the last 10 years, I had been carrying a backpack full of rocks. I had been hiking up a mountain carrying my family on my back. And now that I had put them down, I felt like I could fly. But there was sadness too. I grieved the family I wanted. I grieved the idea that they would love me just for showing up. I had to accept the hard truth. They loved what I provided, not who I was. And that was okay, because I loved who I was, and Caleb loved who I was. 1 month after the dinner, the phone rang. It was Dad. I hesitated, then I answered. "Hello, Melody," he said. His voice was gruff but not angry. He sounded tired. "Hi, Dad. Your mother and I, we're selling the boat," he said. I paused. "Oh, yeah, costs too much to dock it. We don't use it." "That sounds like a smart decision," I said. "Yeah, well," he grunted. "We're going to have a garage sale next weekend, too. Get rid of some junk." He didn't ask for money. He didn't ask for a loan. He was telling me about a financial decision he made. "Good luck with the sale," I said. "Thanks," he said. "Talk later." He hung up. I put the phone down. I smiled. It wasn't an apology. He would never apologize. But it was something better. It was independence. 6 months have passed since the night at the Blue Pearl. My life looks very different now. It is quieter, but it is real. I still see my family, but the terms of engagement are strictly mine. I am the gatekeeper of my own life. We don't do restaurant dinners anymore. I told them simply, "I'm saving for a house, so I'm not eating out." They didn't argue. They couldn't argue because they couldn't afford to treat me, and they knew I wouldn't treat them. So now we do coffee. We meet at a small cafe. I buy my own latte, they buy theirs. We sit for an hour, we talk about the weather, we talk about TV shows, we don't talk about money. The dynamic has shifted. I am no longer the child. I am an adult equal. When Tiffany got a new job, a real job, as a receptionist, she told me about it with a hint of pride. "It's boring," she said. "But the paycheck is steady." "That's great, Tiff," I said. And I meant it. She didn't ask me to buy her celebration drinks. She bought herself a donut. I realized that by cutting them off, I actually helped them. I forced them to grow up. My father is managing his debt. My mother is learning to cook instead of ordering out. They are surviving. They are actually fine. They didn't die without my money. They just became normal people. As for me, Caleb and I bought a house last week. It's small, with a big backyard and a porch. When we signed the papers, the loan officer asked about our down payment. "It's substantial," she said. "You guys have been saving well." I squeezed Caleb's hand. "Yes," I said. "We stopped spending on things that didn't matter." Yesterday, I was cleaning out my old desk in the apartment before the move. I found the black leather folder from the Blue Pearl. I must have accidentally taken it in the chaos, or maybe I kept the receipt and put it inside. I opened it. The receipt from that night was still there. $845.50. I looked at the items, the lobster, the champagne, the greed. I took a lighter from the drawer. I went out to the balcony. I held the receipt over an old ashtray. I flicked the lighter. The flame caught the edge of the paper. I watched it curl and blacken. I watched the numbers disappear. The $845.50 turned into ash. The surf and turf turned into smoke. I watched it burn until it was nothing but dust. I blew the ash into the wind. I went back inside. Caleb was taping up a box marked kitchen. "Ready?" he asked. "Ready," I said. I picked up a marker and wrote on the next box. "Melody's office. I am not the victim anymore. I am not the ATM. I am not the easy one. I am Melody. And for the first time in my life, I am free." My message to anyone reading this, to anyone who feels that heavy knot in their stomach when their phone buzzes, to anyone who pays the bill just to keep the peace. Peace that you have to buy isn't peace. It's a subscription, and you are allowed to cancel it. You can love your family and still say no. You can be a good daughter and still keep your own money. You can walk away from the table. Because the only people who get mad when you set boundaries are the ones who benefited from you having none. I canceled my subscription, and the music of my life has never sounded sweeter.